Controversy has again broken out in the National Assembly. This time it is about the Electoral Act. It was thought that because of the lessons learned from the 2023 elections, it will be important for the Electoral Act to be amended. The controversy is that the version of the bill that was passed by the Senate is said to have been altered in such a way that it is now materially different from the bill that was passed by the joint committees that had been sitting and working together and accepted by consensus. The effect of this is the bill as passed by the House of Representatives is different from the bill that was passed by the Senate. The effect of it is that the two chambers of the National Assembly will set up what you call a conference committee. And the conference committee will sit down and decide according to the existing rules to accept either the House version or the Senate version. And what are the differences in the versions of the bill as they relate to the issue that is in the minds of most people, the issue of election results being tampered with and being altered at the point of being transmitted to the collection center? Let's take a look at the differences that the bills have. Section 60, subsection 3, and it relates to the transmission of polling unit results. And this is at the core of the controversies that emerged only yesterday. First one is the House of Representatives, in the wording of the bill, says, presiding officer shall electronically transmit polling unit results in real time to the INEC result portal. The Senate version says the presiding officer shall transfer or transmit results in a manner as prescribed by the INEC. The implication of this is that as far as the status of the upload is concerned, for the House bill, it is mandatory. It's what the presiding officer must do, only that the House did not attach penalty to whoever will disobey or refuse to transmit the result. The Senate version, however, makes it discretionary. At the discretion, the Independent National Electoral Commission will bring out the rules that will be applied in the result being uploaded to the viewing portal. But the implication of that is that the INEC can actually, in its guidelines, said no, it is not necessary to upload such result. Of course, by the House rules, the INEC, that is the Electoral Commission, is bound by the law to receive real-time results, and it cannot complain about glitches. The Senate version retains full operational discretion for the INEC. It is not under obligation to do that. Of course, to be clear, the House version explicitly embeds a statutory endpoint. The Senate does not make it statutory or mandatory. And failure to upload, as far as the House is concerned, is a breach, even though the House has not provided for the type of penalties that will be applied on whoever fails to do that. As most Nigerians will relate to, the belief has been that election results are tampered with, and that elections results can be changed, and that if elections results are transmitted at the time that they are being produced or announced, the tampering with election results will reduce. Many people believe or appear to believe that electronic voting or the use of electronics is a kind of a silver bullet that can cure the challenges that we've had with election results. To be clear, all through Nigeria's history, we've had problems of election fraud, of elections being rigged, of elections being manipulated. And the problems have persisted even when the British colonial authorities were in charge of elections in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, in one of the elections that they held, the elections result came out in northern Nigeria in favor of the radical northern elements progressive union in some centers such as Jos. And of course, in some centers that were held or populated by people who had allegiance to the United Middle Belt Congress. The colonial authorities brought out a rule which ensured that at this next leg of the election, almost all the people or the persons who had won elections at the first round were defeated by the party that was favored by the colonial authorities. That is the northern People's Congress. And so that after people vote, there are some intermediaries that will change election results and ensure that the persons that they wanted to win will be the ones that will be declared winner. For those who know a little bit of our history in the past, we had a situation where ballot papers were stuffed into boxes and counted later. And in terms of rigging, people will go and print their ballot papers or go to the election supervisors, print their ballot papers and drive away the real voters, remove the ballot papers that they had into the ballot boxes and replace them with fake ballot papers that they had printed and thumb printed. This was the issue until much later in the 90s. It became unfashionable and waste of time for people to wait for the time that they will be stuffing ballot papers. And so we graduated to a situation where all you needed to was to hijack the election result sheets. And we had a situation where presiding officers and election officers were sent to polling units without election result sheets. And the result of that was that you could cast your vote and then the results will be written separately. And in 2003, a very prominent politician went to one of the states in northern Nigeria and told the people that even if there would be a bloodshed and the blood will reach his knees and flow to the federal capital, Abuja, they had to change the results and new result sheets written in favor of his political party. The electoral reforms that were embarked upon got to a stage in the 2015 elections when President Goodluck Jonathan decided to introduce a biometric system of accreditations. In the past, you didn't need to appear at the polling unit. You could be a voter from anywhere. You could be living in the United States of America and your name will be ticked as having voted. So beavers or the accreditation boxes that were bought and introduced by President Goodluck Jonathan were supposed to reduce electoral fraud and ensure that only people who went to polling stations had their votes counted. The result of it was that in the 2015 elections, the number of people who came out to vote low, so low that the number of people who voted in that election was less than the number of people who voted in the primaries that gave them the tickets to stand elections. And so it was thought that if you now introduce a system where people are accredited electronically and that the results are transmitted from the polling unit to where they will be recorded, the room for season result sheets will be reduced and even the officers who work in elections will be protected. But of course, that is the way the Nigerian thinks. That, of course, is not really the silver bullet that will help to solve Nigeria's electoral problem. There are countries in the world, of course, that use the electronic system to vote. But there are also countries in the world that are moving away from the electronic system because they think in their wisdom that the electronic system is easier to be hijacked than the system where people vote manually. Meaning, of course, that people trust themselves more than they trust machines. Let's take a look again at what is happening in some countries in the world. I tried to get a date from 1990 to date, and you can see that Brazil, between 1996 to 2000, shifted from manual to electronic voting. This was a first introduction. And by 2000, elections were broadly automated. And in India too, there has been a shift from manual voting to electronic voting machines. And this was first, and it was introduced under court directions. In Philippines too, we've had a movement from manual to automated voting system. This began in 2008, and the national rollout was done in 2010 using precinct optical scan. We also had Estonia that only had paper only and has moved nationwide to what you call internet voting option. However, not all countries in the world think that the use of electronics is a silver bullet that solves problems of electoral fraud. In Netherlands, for instance, in the year 2000, the government decided to move away from the electronic voting machines to ballot papers. Voting machines were decertified, withdrawn. Subsequent elections relied on paper and hand process. Germany, too, took a decision to do away with voting machines in the year 2009. The Constitutional Court ruled that elections must be publicly verifiable without specialist tools. And if you are using an electronic system, it means that you have to rely on specialist tools such as computers, codes, and other forms of transmission. Ireland, too, decided in 2000 to scrap the trial e-voting that they started and retain the use of paper. The system was abandoned. Machines were later disposed or scrapped altogether. And then in Norway, they started the use of internet voting pilot program. This was also discontinued. The government discontinued the program. Switzerland has had a partial rollback of the use of machines to vote. And in Kazakhstan, voting was discontinued in 2011. Election authorities started the discontinuation due to trust and funding concern that there were issues of trust, that people were doubtful that these machines could be trusted. There are countries that are moving away from it. But overall, the central issue is the issue of trust. Do you trust people or you trust machines? Some of the most advanced countries, technologically advanced countries, are afraid of machines. They prefer to use people. They prefer to trust people. And in Nigeria today, we are talking about using machines because we don't have trust for one another, because we have seen all through our history, right from the colonial era, that people take decisions or do things that are improper. And they do things that are improper because there are no consequences. There are many of these countries, especially the advanced countries, that are moving away from the machines, where the rule of law works, where you cannot go and manipulate elections or carry ballot papers or even forcefully collect result sheets. We've had challenges with our legal system, our judiciary, with even the way laws are passed, that members of the Senate themselves will come out to complain that the bill as passed by them has been changed. It raises serious questions about the integrity of the whole governmental system, about the integrity of everything that we're doing. Like I did say before, the basis of all laws is morality, rules that are generally accepted by society. And the law itself, the legal system, ought to derive from our morality, our generally accepted norms that we have all accepted. And deviants, people who deviate, are brought to book by the society, which is why the police, the judicial systems evolved to take care of deviants, people who go against the generally accepted norms and regulations of society. But we have moved so far away from it. And now Nigerians are begging for technologies which they think will solve the problems that our morality has created for us. Let me have your thoughts about what is happening in Nigeria. Can we really advance this country if the corruption is so bad that we don't trust ourselves and we want to trust machines? Can we actually trust machines whose codes we have not written? My name is Rimamnde Shawulu. This is The Other Side.